Who is excited about Bitcoin DeFi? We got the afternoon crowd. I love it. I'm Brittany. I'm from the Stacks Foundation, and I'm here with Daniel from IOV Labs, and we're going to talk about Bitcoin DeFi and some very exciting things about, I think over 100 million locked on Bitcoin through Rootstock. So kick us off. What is Rootstock? What is IOV Labs? What should we learn?
Yeah, so very nice to see you all, and great to be here with everybody in the Bitcoin community in London. Rootstock was a concept which developed around 2013. A number of Argentinian blockchain developers were trying to understand what technology choices you might need to make to build a new economy. For anyone familiar with the economic situation in Argentina over the last 30, 40 years, you can maybe understand why that was a concern to them. And at the time, you had Bitcoin, which by that point had established itself as an incredible means of peer-to-peer payment and a great store of value, the asset being a great store of value. But you also had the beginnings, some of the early designs around Ethereum, a mechanism for basically running smart contracts. And essentially, the founders of Rootstock wanted to combine the two and take the best of Bitcoin, the best of Ethereum, fuse them together, and they created Rootstock, which was the first Bitcoin sidechain, developed through 2013, 2014. Mainnet launched on January the 4th, 2018, and it's been live ever since. It's EVM compatible smart contract platform, so ERC20 tokens, ERC721s. But there are a number of different characteristics about Rootstock which make it unique. So, there's different definitions of what a sidechain is, but the one that we think is perhaps the most universally useful is that you need economic, cryptographic, and philosophical connection with Bitcoin. So there is no competing money token on Rootstock. We use Bitcoin. You bring Bitcoin from the Bitcoin network, you lock it in the two-way peg, and you unlock Rootstock Bitcoin. Then you can use Bitcoin to store value, pay gas, etc. The consensus mechanism that Rootstock uses is connected to something that's called merge mining. And the way merge mining works, without going into too much, I'll give you a very brief description of how it works for the miners, which is that when the mining pools send the templates out to the miners, there's a 1 or a 0 different in the header, and that difference indicates that it's going to be a Rootstock block that's going to be merge mined. So different ways to think about this, but essentially we piggyback on the cryptographic power of the Bitcoin network to create Rootstock blocks. So you've got Bitcoin native in the network, no competing money token, and you've got the cryptographic connection to Bitcoin. And for mining the Rootstock blocks, we pay, Rootstock pays to the Bitcoin miners 79% of all the transaction fees that are generated on the network. So we're actively funding the Bitcoin miners to keep mining Bitcoin. And that's essentially what a sidechain is. So yeah, it's been around for about 6 years now, and yeah, going strong.
Right. So what do you view as Bitcoin DeFi? Like, what's the purpose? Why would people use, Bitcoin versus using some other DeFi products out there?
Yeah. So this what I've described here, the merge mining process and the alignment. The question is, so what? Right? There's 100 different ways to build a layer one. I think what's specific about Rootstock and why it is such a great home for Bitcoin DeFi is that because of the partnerships that Rootstock has with the Bitcoin miners, Rootstock is secured today, and you can go and check out on the rootstock.io website. You can see this for yourself. You can look at the blockchain explorer and see this data is being secured by 57% of the hashing power of the entire Bitcoin blockchain. So that's why we can comfortably claim that, cryptographically speaking, we are the second most secure blockchain in the world after Bitcoin. And so as a home for DeFi, it makes Rootstock a place which is ultra secure. So that's kind of the kind of thinking, right? Number of things around like block speed, block times, and transaction speed, which are also beneficial, but on par with other kind of significant networks. But why Bitcoin DeFi on Rootstock's interesting is that you've got amazing protocols like Money on Chain, like Sovereign, like Tropicus, where you can take your Bitcoin, you can bring it into Rootstock, and you can put it to work on the network without having to use a competing money token that fluctuates significantly in value, or wrap your Bitcoin at great cost, or pay the kind of fees that you would need to pay on Ethereum. I think Edan from Sovereign and Sheer from the team are here. They've done an incredible job at building out this incredible Bitcoin DeFi platform on top of Rootstock, and hundreds of thousands of users using Sovereign today. So yeah, I mean, there are of course different choices as to where you might want to do Bitcoin DeFi, and of course there's other alternatives. But if it's a question of security and economic and philosophical alignment to Bitcoin, the technology choices behind Rootstock kind of explain why we think it's one of the best places to do DeFi Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, you just mentioned there some adoption numbers. I think this is sort of the question across crypto is like, who's using this? Where are people using it? Why are they using it? I don't know if you can go into some detail more. And for those who may not know Sovereign, you mentioned 100,000 users. Like, who are these people? What are they doing with it? And where else are you seeing adoption?
Yeah, so there is 3,500 Bitcoin locked in the two-way peg today. There is no limit to the amount of Bitcoin that can be brought into Rootstock, theoretically 21 million. There are another additional $180 million worth of either natively launched or bridged from Ethereum assets on the network as well. So in terms of stats, depending on Bitcoin price and asset price, it sits somewhere around 300 million in TVL. In terms of TVL on DeFi, we're like top 24, top 25 network for TVL in terms of actually locked in DeFi platforms as opposed to on the wider network. I think it sits somewhere around sort of like 90 million today in terms of actually locked in DeFi protocols. In terms of usage, so Rootstock was born in Argentina. And there's a significant number of the users. Obviously, we don't have, this is blockchain. We don't have user data, but we know anecdotally that a significant number of the users on Rootstock are in and from Latin America. We tend to think about DeFi in terms of two categories. We talk about advanced DeFi and we talk about everyday DeFi. There's some really interesting. I heard a few comments from some of the earlier panelists about real-world use cases and like real utility and repeatable transactions and the importance of creating economic circuits that have purpose and can run. We feel very strongly that while advanced DeFi is like a super important part of building out the DeFi economy, so leverage yield farming and speculative token launches and all of the great stuff, that is essentially for early adopters and innovators. It's designed by and designed for them. It's typically designed for financially literate, technologically advanced users who are frankly willing to deal with like quite a possibly complicated UI, right? But if you get back to the sort of roots of the philosophy of why Bitcoin was created and why many protocols and many layer one blockchains were created, it's to address inequalities and inefficiencies in the global financial system. And that's where we think everyday DeFi comes in. So this advanced DeFi economy that's being built, our view is that it's being built with a purpose, which is to build retail finance use cases on top of it that can be used by people in emerging markets. So when we talk about everyday DeFi, we have these kind of like shorthand use cases. So pay, save, borrow, and send. So getting paid your salary in crypto, paying utility bills in crypto, saving money and getting a reasonable yield, something equivalent to a kind of US dollar T-bill in a secure way without taking too much risk. Borrowing money, sometimes from like microloan type models, but on chain with kind of like uncollateralized pools, but like very, very limited and very small in size. We see some really interesting use cases in LATAM for those types of protocols being used for small business loans, basically. And send, which is remittances. So sending money to and from family members overseas. Now, a lot of those use cases, if you're based in the UK, for example, those use cases aren't that compelling to you unless you have a family member overseas. Even then, why not use TransferWise, right? If you've got a UK bank account, you can access TransferWise. Why would I need to, do on-chain saving when I can get a reasonable rate at Halifax or Monzo? But for the 1.8 billion people who are underbanked around the world, they don't have access to those kind of services. They don't have the type of regulatory system that's allowed innovative neobanks to emerge. And so we've seen, especially in Argentina, but we've seen something similar happening in Colombia, and there's some really cool stuff happening in Nigeria as well, where we're seeing this kind of crypto neobank leapfrog effect, where similar to how mobile adoption took off in emerging markets about 10, 15 years ago, where people, in some cases, they never had a home phone, they went straight to mobile, or they never had a laptop, their first experience of the internet was a smartphone. We're seeing that a lot of modern banking services that are being offered to, or what you'd recognize as a modern banking service, that are being offered to people in emerging markets are being done through again, what we call everyday DeFi use cases. So this would look like essentially mobile apps, very simple user interface, but you can buy US dollar stable coins, you can on-ramp in Argentinian pesos, you can save and store value in US dollars and get a small return on that, and you can get paid your salary or send money overseas. And I think that where in national economies where the kind of economic polycrisis of the last sort of 8 or 9 years has really hit them quite hard, I think that there's an answer here in what everyday DeFi can do for people. And so, IOV Labs, a lot of the support we're providing into the ecosystem and a lot of the work we're doing to attract protocols into Rootstock, we're doing it specifically focused on everyday DeFi use cases. So that this incredible economy that's been built on top of Rootstock and on top of Bitcoin can be, in our view, used for the maximum possible positive human impact.
So you're working in emerging markets, and it sounds like you've seen most of the adoption there. I think we talk a lot in crypto about the underbanked, the unbanked. This is a great target to kind of have these services. But how do you actually get adoption from these communities? Because they may not be in the forums or in Reddit or spending all their time sort of on X.
Right.
Where are you, is it like on the ground, or like what are the ways in which these kind of technologies get adopted? Because I think there's a lot of applications here that would be very relevant to these communities, but I think there's been kind of a gap of how do you actually reach them, what things resonate, do they even have access to the right technology to be able to onboard to some of these platforms?
Maybe let me make some category distinctions here. So we're not talking about unbanked people, we're talking about underbanked. So these will probably look like middle class or affluent people in emerging markets, in relatively stable emerging markets, who, for whatever reason, they just can't get access to US dollars because there's capital controls or the formal rate is too expensive. So it's not that they can't access the global financial system, it's that the version of that system that they access kind of sucks. And again, like Argentina is the canonical example, but you see other examples like this. In Turkey's another one. A point on the kind of support for this, the Chainalysis annual adoption of cryptocurrency report that comes out towards the end of the year, for the last 2 years has kind of repeatedly said like global cryptocurrency adoption is at its highest in a range of emerging markets, specifically Vietnam, India, Argentina, Brazil. I think in the top 20, the only developed markets are basically the USA, which is speculative token adoption and Bitcoin and stimulus checks. And that's kind of it. The adoption of cryptocurrencies globally is coming primarily from emerging markets. So in terms of how these companies are finding these users, most of the experience of the majority of people that we see in our network is essentially a combination of very easy to use wallets and US dollar stablecoins. They are usually getting onboarded by a family member who wants to send them some money and they want to do so on chain. Or in some cases, a company that wants to pay them in US dollars as opposed to in the local currency. They want to get some kind of return on their dollars, so they ramp their existing physical dollars in some cases through a cash on ramp into USDC or USDT, and then they get yield on that. And that is, I mean, from a retail finance perspective, I mean, what do you do with your bank account? You put money into it, you keep it there, and then when you need it, you spend it. And that's what you do. Sometimes you get a loan. You've got a, almost all of these neobanks have got debit cards attached to them. There is a wild scenario in Argentina which I can never actually explain because it baffles me, which is it's cheaper to buy things on your credit card and pay the bill at the end of the month than it is to pay it on a debit card, because the devaluation in the currency is so significant that you lose whatever, 8-9% a month if you pay it up front, or you gain 8-9% by paying on credit card. So yeah, I mean, they look like banks. They do pretty straightforward things. I mean, you take some examples. So Buenbit, one of the largest on-ramps and off-ramps in our ecosystem. They have about 800,000 users. Incredible product. People like Lemon Cash, I think 2.4 million users in Argentina and Colombia. And there's kind of a, and they all have similar characteristics. They basically look like Monzo or Starling Bank, but they're offering primarily 3 or 4 primary assets and mechanisms to engage in kind of retail finance services, but to do so on chain.
So there's a lot of adoption there. You mentioned a number of markets. Most of those are not US speaking markets. They're very diverse in terms of their culture and their language. How do you think about growing the ecosystem, and especially around education? Because I'm sure there's a number of crypto scams that kind of target a number of these people. They just think that it's easy to take advantage of groups that don't have that many alternatives. So how do you go about building the ecosystem? I'm sure we could spend a lot of time there, but what is maybe like 1 or 2 lessons you've learned in kind of working with these communities?
Relentless focus on a small number of use cases. And I mean, I don't want to simplify, but that's it. We have these use cases. We spend all of our time and money focused on making sure that the circuits work and that there's value being delivered there. Use cases. Use cases.
Okay, and so for any of the developers or people who want to use Rootstock or want to put this in their application, where do you recommend they go learn more or go check out what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so Rootstock is an open, decentralized protocol. You can build anything you like on it. I'm obviously talking here about everyday DeFi because we feel quite passionately that that is the kind of third wave of crypto adoption. Go to rootstock.io. We've got a really sophisticated dev portal. If you want to get up and running fast, Forward protocol launched on Rootstock a couple of weeks ago. This is a no-code platform that allows you to basically build smart contracts without writing a single line of code. It's been incredibly successful in the couple of weeks it's been live. I've even got someone in my finance team, IOV Labs, like writing smart contracts using it. So I'd suggest that if you want to use the network, best place to go is go and check out Sovereign, SOVRYN.app, possibly. Is that right? Really amazing, like full suite of DeFi applications up there. Money on chain, by far the best decentralized stablecoin out there. Bitcoin collateralized. Incredible project that the guys are running over there. Again, Argentinian team, fantastic stuff. So yeah, check out Rootstock.io and check out the dev portal, use Forward protocol, and check out Sovereign and Money on Chain.
That's great. Well, just to summarize, I mean, I think it's great to see Bitcoin DeFi is already here, and it's growing very fast in these emerging markets. We've heard that a lot on the stage, the Global South. So definitely check out Rootstock, check out Sovereign, and help bring the future forward.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.